Have you ever thought of being space? Or at least being a little bit more spacious than what your mirror shows? Could you imagine sensing yourself beyond words or any logical label in your own breathing as time? When I choose to take my reading glasses off, my true internal vision takes me on a journey, following the breath in movement. And so I wonder if you could see yourself alongside what you feel, with eyes open or closed, like I do, in 3 simple steps of relating to life bigger than ourselves. Perhaps there was a time, the time that didn't know the sun. Perhaps the sun was not born yet. And perhaps the earth, as we call it now, comes from those times. Darkness feels much older than the light. I'm lying down with my eyes tightly closed, experiencing the cold breath in through my mouth and the warmth when I exhale. All my senses seem to work much sharper in the dark. They come from that realm. But they were created to meet the light of the outside world, to soften the meeting grounds, to be gentle, to make friends, to protect the dark and to feed the eternal darkness too. They are both the offspring and the breadwinners, the expressions of the ultimate being and the receptors of and for all the current states. The push and the pull, and their creative dance. No wonder the earth is round, or roundish at least, as that is its grounding balance. Between the push and the pull, the forward and the backward, that creates togetherness and support for each other. In my practice of opening to the earth, to the skies and the wind around in movement, I often get rocked by giving in to the breathing patterns of being pulled up while breathe in and down into yielding onto the ground on exhale. And whenever I enter that relational movement pattern, I re-experience breathing as a primal relationship between the air and the earth. I thus relive my own belonging to the earth as a place of rest and comfort. At the same time, though, it is the earth that provides all the support for another lift up to come and helps me rise up. Air in, air out. The earth is breathing alongside with me, through me and around me, and it carries a lot of playful quality in how it handles its relationship with the air. It grows in my attention to full body breath, to remind me of the spatial directionality of the body, able to move in all the directions at the same time, even if on different scales of engagement. Obviously, breathing with my back will be less prominent than with the chest, but it is still moving, receptively. Free movement, deprived of purposeful directionality, by giving in to the body and following the arising sensations, helps me to listen to otherwise silenced body messaging. For me, it often reveals the deep need of shifting the upright hierarchy of walking by releasing the feet into the air, as well as the heaviness in my head by bringing it to the ground for immediate support and comfort. The spontaneity of moving in relation to breathing whole bodily wakes up all the possibilities of being in space. And by entering such freedom, feelable and enabled by my unbreakable relation to the ground as a lively and far from flat surface, it lets the directionality express itself in possible motion. Its source reveals itself to me as that coming from the center of the earth, eliminating thus the simplified view of gravity as working downwards only. Gravity feels all directional, radiating all over the globe in its all-embracing squeeze, and that is what comes through in my free movement as well. Different parts of my body have different needs for this open dynamic of Earth's breathing along, for being more or less resistant to either up or the down. A lively relationship. And when I move like this, following my breathing patterns, the left and the right constantly feel like one and the same direction, contradicting itself yet complementing each other. No matter which direction I choose, it always becomes just one. Up becomes down, left becomes right, all dilute to just forth and back, or the push and the pull, or yield and rise. Just to make me realize this is exactly what breath does as well, moving towards and backwards, not necessarily in and out, as I normally perceive it in its relational encounters. I breathe in to meet the world with my chest movement directed towards the world as it reaches out and expands, and I breathe out back to land within myself. At the same time, I can understand my breathing in as taking a bit of what I need from the earth's air, only to breathe out what I have to share. That way, in becomes the out, and out the in. And my common understanding of what is the in and out in breath refreshes into a whole different dimension of relating in, to, and with life, while noticing how limiting the linguistic concepts of spatial engagement are. I like when we say movement, meaning something singular, while the way it is experienced through endless complexities of bodily sensations is an array of multidimensional activities of various spatial temporalities happening at the same time within the frame of what we simply call the body. Continue moving as I do without actually doing much physically. I experience being functional on possibly infinite amount of frequencies. And this basic push and pull relationship of earth and air, so active in me, creates a lively circularity in, with, and around me. I feel this relationship as soft and gentle in its creative enterprise, yet I know it is the same push and pull that can create most violent punch or further retreat in other movement contexts, and I feel its implicit potency for any change, and those felt possibilities are endless. I like moving in a straight line is possible only in a framed time-space context. Take away the frame and the movement starts to flow, chasing us open possibilities of curves and winds. And so when I enter the studio and release an obligation to perform within the uprightly correct world of human standards, I always land on my force first, to enreach my hands with the touch of the ground, like I often let my feet glide up in the air while lying on the back, to compensate for the upright frame, but also to shake off the fears, as my body yearns for the safety and support of the ground. That very repositioning change alone creates a different set of conditions for being with the breath, and shifting to this more supported, almost resting position sparks a wonder in me. Even though I feel stationary I continue moving. Movement never stops. I like the breathing in life. It simply shifts frequency to a silent mode. And since movement of the breath can albeit change into something so subtle that we don't experience it per se, at least not consciously, practicing openness to breath as movement helps me appreciate my embodied functionality to play with the multiple, the endless, and the infinite within the temporal spans of such deeper attention. And it is the infinite, carried in the temporality of the breath as movement, that unites me with the time-space of each movement and provides the grounding to the felt now, as both the temporal and the infinite dimensions make each other possible in every transition from breath in into breath out, and breath in into breath out. I wish I could hear the earth move through space. I sense into the breeze, like a layer that hugs the earth as an expression of the spatial relationship between the cosmos and the permeable surfaces of the earth. A moving relationship that shapes the earth every day, every sound, every breath. I'm yawning, standing with my hands open. My chest opens too and gets pulled out. Head goes up. My feet want to spread out. My toes part. My back wants to stretch. And I'm in a new relationship again. I spread out, almost like with wings. Not only the air gets rebalanced, but all the watery systems and my connection to the ground, its texture and its temperature. The air makes me light and loose. It activates directionality in relation to all the space around me. Even my back feels like it's breathing better now, very airy. I feel like my bones weigh nothing, and the sound can move me. It can lift me like a feather. I'm scooping air and spreading it around. I'm scooping ground and spreading it about. My feet are so light, I'm throwing myself around and being thrown at the same time. Who is doing the moving? I don't know. My toes are taking off. My heels can hardly support the whole body as it wants to fly. My hair is so delighted. The longer it grows, the more fun it has. I need to sit down to give my feet more air. They don't want to be on the ground. They want to be where my hands are, in the air. They want to do their clowning and jumping in the air, so carefree and childish, exploring the air. No child can say no to that infantile ridiculousness of freedom and shifting hierarchies. The bouncing down and up in movement reminds me that I am traveling constantly with the earth. And as the earth travels, spinning around itself and the sun, and who knows what else, because I'm sure the sun is not stationary either, I just want to feel that movement in the air that lands on my skin as I open up to receive it with the whole surface of my skin, front and back and sideways, with my eyes wide open and my attentive ears. I've been asking myself that question for a while now. Why have I lost the fun in this? Well, it's such a glorious bliss to move, to follow the movement, to follow myself in it, to play with that wind I create myself while charging through the space, through the air, and traveling on the rays of sun, caressing my own emotions in it, flying, gliding with a feeling of resting on the air, and then receiving that bounce back from the ground. Just running, enjoying the lightness of every fall and every bounce back, the freedom of maneuvering and voicing on the inhale and the exhale. I do feel humbled. I do feel humbled by what I am receiving, and I want to grow along with it, appreciating every moment, soothing my own frustrations within that appreciation, and moving with it, not necessarily forward. Who am I? I'm asking myself. I am the warmth. I am the warmth of a cushion under my back as I'm lying on the floor. What am I? I am the light, enjoying the warmth of the day. I feel the joy of all the body cells, sensing the springtime in bloom. Cold fingertips remind me of the freshness in the air. How am I? I am soft and spongy, ready to belong to the space, yearning to feel the air in my fingers, in the palms of my hands, inside my head. I feel quite airy again, and I want to invite air deeper into my bones, to both sides of my pelvis. And while I am moving with the temperature nuances between the warm and the cold, I am developing some rocky movement in my pelvis. It gives me a lot of freedom. And it makes me wonder, where is the lightness inside? Do we have the inner light? And where is the darkness and the deepest place in my body? I am being drawn to the deepest vastness under my tummy, to the pelvic floor. And surprisingly, this is also at the same place that I would look for the light. Being with that sense of embrace that provides both protection and a gate to the open, the airy chamber where the dark meets the light and where the light rests within darkness. This is where time is made. This is where time comes alive. As time is the play that lives in interplay between the darkness and the light, creating this most amazing shape, reaching out and sitting in at the same time, reminds me that such opposite movements are possible to be performed in slow motion. Reminds me that the breath in starts already somewhere in the breath out. There is no borderline. And that we visualize movement too much, forgetting and losing its felt multidimensionality inherent in every glitch. And on the prolonged breath out, I can experience how the wave of my voice is shaped by the beating of my heart. And so, who am I? I am the how. I'm sitting on a big pile of rocks, and on the sound of underground water rushing underneath it all. What a force! Built on all its grace, it just has to travel. I feel mainly water too. Water in its true relation to the earth, springing of it like a newborn baby, and then expanding and growing and traveling the world, merging with other water species, shaping the land, curving the continents, and hugging it all constantly on the go, constantly changing, filled with air, then evaporating, to travel even further, through the air. It almost feels like the creative life force is all about the ability to connect, permeate and transform. A will, an unspoiled curiosity to delve into another element, while sharing its own way of being. Oh, finally! How good is it to be reminded that the softness of this ground covered with thick layers of moss is soft because of volumes of water it stores underneath. I'm literally sinking into the soil, giving every step to the earth, not owning it. I'm walking driven by today's sunshine, following the voices, and I soon encounter a big herd of sheep and an open gate. A few sheep are outside their fenced territory, and I continue approaching slowly. The sheep freeze to observe all tendencies in my movement, and they are accepting my pace for a while, until I come too close. Then in an instant they flee and chase back through the open gate. I shrink for a second, frightened by their sudden run, and then I notice that one sheep stays. She is looking at me carefully, observing my every move, and I slow down even more and start talking to her, as if I meet a friend on the path. And together we slowly establish a safe distance of being with one another. The sheep releases from her stiff pose, and she senses I stopped targeting her in my walk and started moving around her while talking. I see her as being brave. She's the only one who stayed with me on the wrong side of the fence, and she continues grazing while keeping the eye on me. I'm moving around for a while longer and then open the gate wider so she knows she can always go back. Then I cross the gate myself and join the whole herd in improvised movement amongst all the sheep scattered all over the hill. And the herd reacts as a group. They keep silent to watch me, then sound one another as if they feel I approach them too close. They also rush away in packs to rearrange their safe positioning if I move too rapidly. And after a while of this improvised exchange in movement and sound, I encountered a spot with bare sheep bones, all exposed. I sit in contemplation. Again then, the experience adds up to my wonderings about the interpenetrating opposites, the form and the flow, or the structure and the living force relationships, and makes it very tangible to relate, both physically and emotionally. And all that makes me continue feel thinking. Lines, ropes, threads, walking paths. Moving forward only is being selfish. And so being with is a choice choice of being open to whatever comes. It is an agreement to be taken on a journey, and after a while, the journey becomes you. Yet my awareness gives that journey an opportunity of diverting its stream through opening to other, the transitioning stages. A journey, any journey, cannot happen without those transitioning periods. Nothing can. Everything belongs to some sort of a process in one or multiple realms. Day and night also have a different relationship to each other in different places on Earth. Day becoming a night can be a slow, fluent process, or it can happen abruptly, within minutes. And so the transitioning may have different dynamic of being fluent and flowful, or a bit bumpy and fast, switching directions. Movement can also transition into something completely new, with only traces of resemblance to the old process it transitioned from, like in an open shape, any open shape. And so any thorough transition does have a recognizable, repeatable pattern that keeps looping, that keeps coming back while moving forward. And I guess it's the same to say that endless possibility of something does not exclude the endless possibility of something else. And I think this is exactly why we have 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, up and down sides of the lips. The singularity inherently contains the possibility for its dual nature, and like the duality creates perfect harmony of oneness in embrace. Being 1 and 2 at the same time is the playground for multiplicity, of creation, of desire and rejection, of choice and uniqueness. And my embodied self embraces possibilities of it all, even when I'm doing nothing. The very thought is an abstraction of way more complicated movement happening all the time, escaping all simplification, escaping contained understanding, possession, because it is open, never ending. Thought is just a tool, and we have developed our toolbox amazingly. Aren't we witty? Aren't we the crafters, shape-shifters, drawing lines, making things make other things? What do you think made us? It is the Earth's repetitious movement. We have been created by it. We have been created by the circular movement of the Earth around the sun, while it lives and creates life in the same way, by repeating the pattern of night and day, by living its transformative power of creation. I wonder what would happen to the shape of our thoughts and our bodies if the circle of night and day was to be altered. What if a day could follow another day without a night in between? Would it still be 2? And what if the Earth were once to follow a different pattern around the sun in space? What new shapes would the life on Earth grow? I wonder. And perhaps one day it will happen, or perhaps one night, depending on who is talking, or who is doing the thinking. And life is way too complex to be captured in words, in its magical connectivity between anything and everything, between something and nothing. And so, had I been seeing the world perfectly with my own eyes, I'm thinking, I might have never become a human being whose real vision thrives on such magical mysteries of the unseen, but deeply felt in movement of nature. And only one question remains to be asked. Why am I? Why are you? Why are we here? It's because we are nature.